This video is for entertainment purposes only, and it is not meant to bully or harass anybody. This is part 2 of my interpretation of the 1997 film David Lynch's Lost Highway. I believe David Lynch was a genius. There are really not a lot of filmmakers that are as profound and deep as him. The movie Lost Highway was a very shocking movie. It brought out every kind of emotion possible in me. Shock, horror, sadness, curiosity, boredom, wonder, arousal, and anger. It was all in there. It has been years since I've seen this movie. I do have it on DVD somewhere. In my first video, I did a pretty good job up until the end. That's where it got really blurry at the end, I think, because the scenes were so intense and violent and sexual that it was really hard to tell what's going on. So this is from Wikipedia. Lost Highway received mixed reviews and grossed $3.7 million in North America after a modest three-week run. Most critics initially dismissed the film as incoherent, but it has since attracted a cult following and critical praise. You know, when I first saw it, it was incoherent as well. But now that I've picked it all apart, it still doesn't all make sense. But at least I have some kind of foundation of what's going on. Ooh, in 2003, the film was adapted as an opera by the Austrian composer Olga Neuwirth. I might check that out. When I was describing the end of the movie in my first video, it wasn't very clear. This is what Wikipedia says happened at the end. Pete and Alice arrive at an empty cabin in the desert and start having sex outside on the sand, which ends with Alice getting up and disappearing into the cabin. Pete transforms back into Fred. Upon searching the cabin, he meets the mystery man, who begins filming and chasing Fred with a video camera. Fred escapes and drives to the Lost Highway Hotel, where he finds Mr. Eddie and Renee having sex. After Renee leaves, Fred kidnaps Mr. Eddie and slits his throat. The mystery man shoots Mr. Eddie dead and then whispers something to Fred before he disappears. Fred drives to his old house, buzzes the intercom, and says, "Dick Laurent is dead." When the two detectives drive up to the house, Fred runs back to his car and drives off with the detectives in pursuit. The chase continues into the night, with Fred screaming helplessly as the car speeds down the darkened highway. Bill Pullman's character is named Fred, and that means peaceful ruler. Fred is a very pained character in this film, as far as I could see. He's always upset, and his sex scenes with Patricia Arquette are not passionate or sexy. And there's a scene where Patricia Arquette's face turns into the mystery man's after they were making love, and that was really spooky. And you know what? If I was Fred too, I'd be sad if I saw my wife wandering around the bar where I was working in my jazz musician gig. If I'm not mistaken, in the movie, Renee Sancho is this guy named Andy, and then Andy is the same guy Alice was seen getting nailed by at his house on the big screen in the living room. Pete showed up to help rob the place. Patricia Arquette, number 1, is usually in dark outfits. In this one, she's wearing red. This is the scene where she said she was going to stay home and read before Fred went out to go play his gig. She's very beautiful, but she's a very unlikable character. And I never understood why she was screwing around with that guy, Andy. Bill Pullman is way more handsome than that guy. I don't know, it's just a movie. I think about things way too much. And the name Renee means reborn. It is a form of Renata, and that is Latin. It's interesting how they picked the name Renee because she is reborn as Alice later on. The way Renee is cut in half by Fred reminds me of the Black Dahlia. This was filmed in Hollywood. And honestly, looking into all this stuff is really spooky. But it's not an incoherent film. There's deep meaning inside of it. And I don't know if I'm stupid, brave for looking into it. I also thought Renee's character was very bland. She was never happy or funny. She was very beautiful and sexy, and I couldn't get enough of her. Now there's a picture with Andy and Renee. The actor's name is Michael Massey, and he does play a good bad guy. He has a weird mustache, and he just really creeped me out. The way the characters were dressed and the actors they picked was perfect. The name Peter means stone or rock. I also think of Peter Pan or young boy. So Pete's character, played by Balthazar Getty, is a car mechanic, young guy. And I thought it was interesting. His parents look like tough biker people, but they're always subdued. They never act wild. The name Eddy means current of water or air running contrary to main current. We find out Mr. Eddy's name is also Dick Laurent, and Richard means king. In this picture, this is the scene. Renee's watching a dirty movie, a dirty snuff movie with Mr. Eddy. The sex scenes with Mr. Eddy always gross me out. I guess in this scene, Patricia Arquette looks the happiest. That's really fucked up. In the scene where Patricia Arquette is getting out of the car, I thought Patricia Arquette was absolutely one of the most beautiful women in the world. The name Alice means noble. Alice's behavior is the opposite of noble. Alice wears a lot of white, and I was kind of thinking it tricks you into thinking she's good. Because we had Renee that mostly wore black, and we know Renee fooled around on her husband, pretty much in front of his face. When I hear the name Alice, I also think of Alice in Wonderland and the White Rabbit. I don't want to get too off track, but the CERN project is called the Alice Experiment, using the White Rabbit technology. And the only reason why those names are picked is because the guys are geeks and they like them that make it. Alice is a porn star and her boyfriend is Mr. Eddy. And then Pete's other girlfriend in this movie, Sheila, had a tiny role, and her name means blind. So Pete is also being followed around by detectives just because of the crazy activity that happened at the jail when Bill Pullman got swapped with him. So these detectives get to see Pete running around, messing around with Alice and Sheila. There was a scene where they're surveying Pete, and one of them said, "Man, this guy gets more pussy than a toilet seat." In this movie, I didn't really think there were any good guys. I thought everyone was scandalous and sinful, if you want to use that word. I think Alice and Renee represent the Jezebel or the succubus. Those are two different things, though, but scandalous female is what I'm getting at here. So South Park did one on the succubus. It's a demon sent to suck the life out of men. And then I wonder why things turned out differently for Pete and Fred. Fred became enraged, and he killed Renee when he discovered her infidelity. And Pete didn't care at all. One thing I noticed, Pete got the porno tape before he met Alice. So maybe he was a little desensitized to what was ever on that porno. Maybe. Just a thought. There's a lot of mystery, and I also see some themes of cult ritual, like blood sacrifice and the fire ritual. And they did burn that house at the end. This movie really creeped me out and made me think about how many houses are out there in the middle of the desert that very few people know about. This movie tells the story of the dark side of Hollywood. I think the porn industry is for regular people that go out to Hollywood with stars in their eyes that want to be in movies. And I think movies are nearly impossible to get into unless you're part of the family. That's just my opinion. I don't recommend going out to California to do modeling shoots. You might not come back. But I have to go ahead and end it right there. This was a difficult presentation to do. It feels so good to get it out of my brain, though. And I thank you all for listening to me. If I think of anything else, I'll put it in the comments section. And I hope you all have a great night. Bye.